Over these last days, we've been endeavouring to understand the nature of emptiness. And in those endeavours, several questions arose. How do we know that we're in a state of Satchitananda? And what is it that binds those three levels of life together? And it also brought up the question that's been asked some time ago and still remains with us, and that is, what is it that's there when stillness and movement meet? And in trying to find answers to these questions, there have been stories told about luck and the deep meaning of luck. But just to finish that little phase, there's a little story about luck which twists this a little bit for us before we dive deeper into an even deeper question. And it's a story about a rich brother and a poor brother. And the poor brother lived on the largesse of his older brother until one day the wife of the older brother said, "Enough, we've given them enough. This is the finish of that." So the poor man was left with no way of feeding his family or living. So the only thing he could do was pack up his belongings and move on. So he packed up the wagon with the accoutrements of his simple little hut that he was living in with his family. But he hadn't got too far down the road. Then when he remembered that he'd left behind the only cooking pot that they owned. So he left his family there and he took the wagon and he went back to the little hut. But when he got there, there was a tall, lanky young man leaning on the doorstep. And the poor man was very surprised to see this young man, but he hurried inside the hut and got his pot and took it out. But when he came out, the young, lanky man was following him. And when he geed up his donkey, the young man ran faster. So the poor man stopped and said, what are you chasing me for? The young man said, "Oh, don't you recognize me? I'm your bad luck, and I go everywhere that you go." Well, the young man climbed into the wagon beside him. Yeah, the poor man couldn't do anything about it. But as he was going along, the poor man suddenly had a thought. So he stopped the wagon, he took out his axe, and he went over to the nearest tree and he started chopping. And he chopped so hard that his axe got caught in the wood of the tree. And then he turned to the young man sitting in the wagon. He said, "Well, you might be my bad luck, but surely you're going to help me in this situation. I'll move the axe and you put your hand in there so that I can remove my axe. I need this axe to make my livelihood." Well, the young man got out, and as soon as he put his hand in the crevice, the axe was removed. The young man's hands were stuck. And there he was. So the poor man got in his wagon and drove off. And they came to another little town, and he got work, and he made his fortune, and they got rich. So word got back to his older brother that his poor brother was now rich. So his older brother decided that he'd go and check up what was going on with his younger brother. But of course on the road, he comes to the tree. And there's the young man with his hand stuck in the tree. And the rich man asks him, and the young man says, "Please, oh please, please help me, please help me." And he said, well, who are you? And the young man said, I'm your brother's bad luck. Well, the older brother said, "Well, if I remove your hand, will you go back to my brother?" "Of course," said the young man. So the older brother came, and with his axe they and released the young man. Well, the young man danced around. Thank you, oh, you are such a good man. I'm so grateful to you that I've decided to stay with you. That's how the rich man became poor and the poor man became rich. So it kind of finishes off our little stories about luck. Because if we get stuck with these words and names, then of course it's an ongoing thing in the mind, and it's not of the mind that we're dealing with here. So the second story, which allows us to dip our heads deeper. As has been said, this Satchitananda is in another name called the Ocean of Oneness. It has its own connotations. So we can use that saying, a description, dive deeper into this. So it's the story of a young man who spent all his days over the desk in the yeshiva studying the holy book, the Talmud. Every day he could be found poring over the words contained in this holy volume. And then one day it was observed that the young man jumped up from his desk, went out into the streets, and I don't want to read not one more word until I know the meaning of life. I don't want to see another book, I don't want to read another word, I just want to know the meaning. Well, people around tried to calm him down, just go back to your studies, just go back to knowledge, learning, reading the holy books. And said, no, I just want to know the meaning of life. Well, finally, someone came up with a suggestion that this young man should go to a very learned rabbi who lived in a town not far from there. So the young man set out immediately. And when he was brought into the presence of this great rabbi, he went over to him and whispered in his ear, Rabbi, I just want to know the meaning of life. Well, the young man was sat down, and the rabbi pondered for a little while. And then he came over, and he kind of looked over the young man, looked him over from head to toe, looked him in the eye, and then gave him a big slap. And he said, what are you slapping me for? What are you hitting me? I just came to ask the question, what is the meaning of life? The rabbi said, you stupid young man. You have a perfectly wonderful question. Why do you want to exchange it for an answer? Answers separate us. Questions unite us. What's your experience of this? Answers separate us. Questions unite us. Isn't this diving deeper from where we are in relationship to our questions?
Just though a question sort of opens us up, whereas the answer kind of makes an
shuts us
down.
To take on it relative to this. Going to our deep question, what is it that happens when stillness and movement meet? What is it that unites these three levels of life? We've kind of moved on from those questions, and yet they're still there, because there is a summation that provides the answers for us. But for the now, diving deeper, what is the deep meaning of this statement? Answers separate us. Questions
it seems to me it's a bit like that openness to possibilities. And so when we're in that, I suppose that's what unites the stillness and the movement, because it allows for endless possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely it does.
And so it's a point of creation.
Absolutely.
Divine mystery.
Divine mystery,
Divine
that
mystery.
it presents itself to us in every single moment of life with everything we meet.
Mm.
And to arrive at this place where we have no answers leaves us totally open to life. And the mysteries, the wonder of it, isn't it? But could it be that there's something deeper still in this? We recognize that there is, isn't there? Because as we can see, it does take us deeper and deeper into this wonder. But are you getting a gleaning yet that it is giving us an understanding, a gleaning of the understanding of the nature of emptiness? Isn't it so?
Definitely. When you're sitting in the unknowing, you're more open. When you think you know you've defined it, the mind started working, you're out of it.
Absolutely. So in endeavouring to understand the nature of emptiness, we're experiencing emptiness. Isn't it so? But to ponder on this simple statement, this simple story, does take us deeper, for want of a way of expressing.